We now have an amazing panel session moderated by session lead Millicent Clark, Regional Head of HR, Asia Middle East, Standard Chartered Bank, AME, UAE. Please allow me to welcome her and her wonderful panelists. But before that, let me just share a little bit about Millicent. She's got a distinguished career in HR over roles that she has enjoyed over the last 27 years in diverse industries. Millicent brings around sound leadership capabilities in people practices and organizational effectiveness, and a wealth of experience and expertise at both a strategic and operational level to any organization. She is joined by a panel of distinguished speakers: Rana Al-Majid, Acting HR Director, Zain Bahrain; Joe Chaluhi, Group CHRO of BIHA; Oliver Baxter, Insight Program Manager at Herman Miller, UAE; and Vaclav Koranda, Vice President, Human Resources, T-Systems Malaysia. Welcome, everybody. That is so wonderful to see all of you. So can you hear me? You'll need to unmute yourselves.
Yeah, I can hear you very well, Helen.
Oh, fantastic. There you are. Wonderful.
Yeah, great.
Hi.
Excellent. So welcome all of you. Thank you so much for your time, your patience, and for spending so much time, Millicent, with your entire team, coordinating. It's so grateful, so grateful. So take it away. You've got 40 minutes, a great session, and we're all looking forward to listening to all of you. Hi, Rana. Cool. All right, take it away.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Helen. And just a little point of correction. I'm the HR regional head of HR for Africa and Middle East, not Asia and Middle East.
All right.
So
okay. Yeah. I'm glad you stood correct.
Yeah, and thank you so much, for introducing my panelists. And you're welcome, my fellow panelists. And for more details, our bios are available in the link to this session. And our topic today is on strategic HR and the future of work. Just quickly to set the context, the world of work is changing, as you all know, and it's changing fast. Technological advances such as robotics, AI, demographics shifts, such as increasing, life expectancy, diversity, and consumer empowerment seem to be fundamentally changing the way people work and the way organizations also design jobs and environments. Some of these, are challenges, but it can also be an opportunity to reimagine talent modules, organizational practices, and business models. So the future of work is here. It's not in the future, it is here. And this creates an urgent need for us in HR to redefine aspects of work, the workforce, and the workplace. And one thing we can all relate to is that most organizations have had to shift different models of working patterns in recognition of the future of work or in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Here we are having a virtual conference. 3 years ago, we would have all been meeting in Bahrain or in some other country. This would have been unthinkable. So let's hear from my fellow panelists. Just a fun fact on my panelists. All the gentlemen on the panel are psychologists. So Rana and I, who are the ladies on the panel, are not psychologists, but we all have immense experience in HR. So let me start with you, Rana, ladies first. I want to just go through with all my panelists. Is the hybrid model here to stay? Rana, if I can start with you.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Perfect. First of all, I would like to thank everyone, and it's a great pleasure to attend such an event that sheds light on a very important topic related to the future of work. Yes, I totally believe that the hybrid working is here to stay. Honestly, it's a win-win situation for both the employee and for the organization. If we will see it from the employee perspective, during the pandemic period, employees had amazing experience when it's come to balance between their personal and organization needs. And at the same time, if we will see it from the organization perspectives, it's the way organization see things are changing. It's no longer the traditional thinking that productivity is depending upon a set of hours within an office environment. It's highly related to embracing the way that they have to be a performance and people-driven organization. So I totally encourage every organization to be part of this movement toward flexibility and toward the hybrid style.
Thank you, Rana. Joe, let me come to you with the same question. Is hybrid working here to stay? What's your view?
Hybrid is not something really new, to organizations. Some companies have kind of very much launched this model many years before the pandemic. What the pandemic did, it really didn't really give much option anymore to companies. And if transformation was really at large, it was really during pandemic that everybody had to go into really that model. So people who've already been in it or had or were trying it kind of really benefited from really the transformation. Those who were really hesitant and reluctant kind of had to really jump straight into it and adapt very quickly. And during the pandemic, they've kind of very much realized that, hey, this is something that is different, something that's really working, something that kind of we're trying to get used to and adapt to, and let's see how we're going to really kind of transform going forward. A little less looking at also employees' interaction and reaction as well. So in a nutshell, my personal beliefs is the hybrid model is very much here to stay.
Great. Thank you for that. For someone who is so used to going to the office for 5 days, I've had to struggle to work from home sometimes, but yes, it's here to stay. Let's hear from you, Vaslav. Any other views?
I've just attended another session this morning. By the way, good morning or good afternoon, wherever we are. I have already 4 p.m. So this morning I was attending a different session, and the topic was actually what they call nowadays the Great Resignation, which is sort of like the post-pandemic effect, if you want. I think at the beginning of last year, when this hybrid or working from home started on a massive scale, because that was the only option to survive for many businesses, we all got sort of a shock, right? Because we were never used to work from home like full time, or almost full time. But I think throughout the time, people got adapted to it, and not only adapted to it, they actually started to prefer it. And we can see as HR professionals that more and more employees are actually preferring this hybrid kind of a model, or even what, for instance, T-Systems is now trying to implement, work from anywhere, right? Not just work from home, but take your laptop, whatever, as long as you can perform your job, you can do it from the Thailand, from the beach in Thailand, if you want, and this is something that is very attractive, especially for the younger generations nowadays, but also for the, let's say, more senior employees. Still, a lot of countries, in a lot of countries, the schools are not open yet, and they have to take care of their family life and somehow blend the personal and working agenda together. And this flexible working model actually allows for that much better than the traditional one. And there is such a phenomena as people who are actually asked to come back to the office are handing in resignations, and they are trying to find either they apply for a job in companies that allow this working model, or they go freelance, or they start their own business, or they do online marketing, YouTube, whatever. The possibilities are endless nowadays. And the other thing I would like to highlight is that this hybrid working model does not only have advantages for the employees and for the company, but I also see the overall impact to the society, to the environment, because the less we travel, the less we commute, the better for our environment. And it's also, I would say, a sort of elegant solution to many other problems like the climate change and traffic congestion, and so on.
Great, thanks for your view. Oliver, I'm going to move to you now. Is hybrid working here to stay? If you can give us your view, short view, and then we'll go to our next question. Yeah.
Cool. So I'm probably the odd one out. I work for a furniture company, but more and more I've started to see HR kind of around the table now, around the conversations around workplace and design, especially during 2020, because we were literally holding people's lives within our hands in regards to that return to the office. So I've actually been, speaking at HR conferences for quite a while, but I'm just so pleased to now see it go the other way and see HR professionals involved in some of the conferences that we're working on. Is hybrid here to stay? Yeah, it's nothing new. Like Joe said, at Herman Miller, we've actually been designing hybrid office furniture since 1942. That was the first hybrid range that we launched. It was called the Executive Office Group. It was designed for home and office. So it's really been around for a very long time. But if you look at some of the sentiment that's out there in the market from the employees, just referencing like the Future Forum, they did a 10,000 person knowledge worker survey. 76% of them, don't see themselves going back, for the full 5 days a week. And what was more interesting is that 96% of them wanted more flexibility with the when, not just the where, which I thought was really interesting. And Václav as well, probably when you were attending that previous panel this morning, around the great resignation or the mass exodus that you're seeing, you'll have heard a similar statistic that 50% of employees, depending on which research you listen to, are thinking of leaving their jobs and doing something different, because we've all kind of reorientated our lives because of COVID. And that's the big issue, right? And if you want to remain an employer of choice, right, you're going to have to make sure that your talent pool sees you that way, and you're going to have to offer what it is that they're all looking for. And that's kind of the number one question that I'm hearing from the HR professionals I've been talking to, is that the new recruits coming in, they want to know about that hybrid, they want to know about that flexible strategy that you're trying to implement. And if you don't have one, or if you've got a office first, or even just like a remote first strategy, they're both kind of reductive models, because you're not giving full autonomy there. You're saying, well, you can only work at home, or you can only work in the office. Whereas hybrid is really about giving people choice and then empowering them with great choices. So, what's wrong with that? Apart from the fact that we don't have that many great case studies out there, and it is more difficult than either of those two extremes. But it's worth it. You get more performance from people. If you look at some of the data from Gallup, they've highlighted that people who work outside of the office for 3 to 4 days of the week are the most engaged out of the employees, and the ones that are in the office all the time or outside of the office all the time are the least engaged employees in those businesses. So if you care about the performance and the productivity of employees, then hybrid's also for you as well.
Thank you, Oliver. I'm going to stick with you, Oliver. I mean, given your background in Herman Miller and the workplace design, can you share a few insights on asynchronous working, distributed work, and adaptive physical workspaces? I know this is your passion. If you can share a little bit more.
Yeah, so distributed working, for those of you that might be unfamiliar with the terminology, is the larger mega trend where hybrid sits underneath. So hybrid is just another word that we've used for teleworking, or remote working to a degree, because often with remote work there was still a physical in the office element as well. But distributed work is the larger mega trend. So that's being able to work from wherever. It's bringing the work to the worker rather than the worker to the work. That's the main thing there. So anywhere working also sits under distributed working. And another piece of terminology that people often reference when they're talking about distributed working is asynchronous working. So right now we are synchronized in this panel and the attendees are watching this live and in real time. But if one of your colleagues couldn't attend this session, then maybe they'll be able to attend the recording of this session and they would be watching that asynchronously. And what's great about asynchronous is you have a larger, broader reach. And so like an example for me, I'm based in Dubai. So when I start work at like 8 in the morning, by midday, my colleagues in the UK are waking up. So we can start co-authoring a report in like Google Docs or OneDrive. And by the time I kind of finish at like 5:30, the Americans are waking up. So I can kind of pass the baton to them around the sun, and we can actually accomplish more work in that fashion. And global organizations have known that for a long time, but the SMEs are starting to catch on to it as well. And with this more globalized nature of work as a result of COVID-19 and being able to hire talent from around the world to work digitally, they're also enjoying that benefit of asynchronous and distributed work. So distributed work it does involve the office, but it involves every location outside of it: planes, trains, automobiles, coffee shops, co-working and third spaces, as well as a multitude of locations within the office. In a nutshell, a desk and a chair hasn't for a long time been sufficient enough for you to accomplish your job. And now in this post-pandemic landscape, you're going to have to provide significantly more than just that setting if you want to lure people back into your office, because I don't think you'll be able to mandate and remain an employer of choice.
Thank you, Oliver. And I think all these designs are to support employee well-being in the workplace, as attraction and also retention strategies. Joe, if I come to you, I mean, I know you have done a lot of work, working for Pepsi, working for GE. Can you give your views on the mental health aspects of reskilling of employees, and how you think the HR industry can shape and change this?
If I look at the mental health situation, let's look at the mental health during pandemic. It certainly has been magnified big time during the pandemic era, particularly, of course, talking about mental health of employees. And we all really know kind of the reasons, I mean, this is something new, it's massive transformation, people are working from home, children at home, there's homeschooling, they're alone, lack of visibility on careers, falling into depression, causing anxiety, stress, the list really kind of goes on. That was really kind of very much highlighted to a lot of companies that and a lot of them unfortunately realized the fact a bit too late, and hence today, if you look at the trend today and the media and the theme, it's really very much about the great era of resignation, the great era of development, the great era of looking elsewhere for other things, and really kind of wondering, what the future holds. So today you see a lot of companies pouring in a lot to able to fix it, to make money, to invest money, particularly on employee welfare, because to raise again the level of engagement, motivation, passion, clarity, etc. Hence, linked to that is really the upskill and the reskill, of the working era today. Particularly when we speak about the digital era, and I think as that was really kind of led on earlier about the impact of AI. So people today now, they're tracking engagement remotely, they're kind of engaged remotely, and they're really relying heavily on the digital front for that. Companies that have invested in digital infrastructure kind of all benefit from that big time. Companies that didn't, had to really sort of double down in order to really catch up. When we speak about upskilling in particular, we kind of speak about no longer we can really put in long-term goals, right? We've noticed that the pandemic has very much cut that off, or cuts its wings off, and now very much the focus is really on short-term reskilling, short-term upskilling. How do you kind of, maintain a culture that's kind of been shifting and kind of somehow lost in the scheme of things? How do you keep the employees engaged? How do you keep managers in touch with their employees? New things have come to play. Accelerated learning has been put in place. So it's kind of reshuffled, the future of work, as you mentioned kind of earlier on that, and the necessity for upskilling and reskilling for employees as well as for managers has really become, a key thing in maintaining and sustainable, engaging and healthy working future.
Thank you so much, Joe. I think mental health support went from a nice to have to a business need. And just to give some flavor, we performed an employee survey here in Standard Chartered, and those in the hybrid arrangement have told us that they have a good balance of productivity and well-being. Those who are 100% working from office and 100% from home, interesting enough, they have the highest work-life balance challenges with higher levels of stress. And the reskilling and upskilling agenda has never been, on top of the agenda for most organizations than it has been now. So thanks a lot for sharing. Vaslav, as he's told you, joins us from Malaysia. Vaslav, can you share with us some general or future trends that's happening in Asia, given that you're in that part of the world? Are you guys still trying to reimagine what the new normal will look like? So let's hear from you, Vaslav.
Yeah, I've been in several sessions regarding this topic since the past 4-6 weeks. And I think overall, the majority of the companies are planning for some sort of a hybrid model in a sense of partly working from home and partly from office, maybe in a 50-50 or 60-40 split, something like that. Not many are planning for like fully mobile working, but I think that's pretty much what the market currently looks like. I think everyone realizes the benefits of the hybrid model. You can save on office space in case your company is subsidizing the transport for the employees. You can save on that as well. You can gain, if you implement it in the right way, you can gain actually engagement. And if you find a way how to manage properly these two groups of, because even in the hybrid model, maybe there will be employees that will be permanently working from home because of whatever reason, and then you just have to find the right way of engaging each and everyone, regardless where they are working from. And for instance, the well-being program, we have quite a comprehensive well-being program in these systems, but it's all pretty much physically based, including a chiropractor in the office and stuff like that. Now we have to rethink the whole model and implement probably something different. So that is what is currently happening in Asia. I don't see much pressure to push the people back to the office. I think everyone realizes that the pandemic is not over yet. We could have seen just another peak recently in the West, and I think in Asia as well. And who knows, maybe there will be another strain in the next few months, and we will see another peak. And people are still afraid that the virus is that might come back anytime later, and they are not really happy to go back to the office. So that's about it for Asia.
Cool. Joe, just quickly from you, Middle East, is there a difference? Anything different coming through in the Middle East?
If we look at, there's a lot of surveys been done in the Middle East, Conferi, KPMG, I think I'll refer to Gallup, and the list kind of goes on. And I think the finding is that, 70% of companies in the Middle East today are practicing the hybrid model. Some were pushed into it because of the pandemic, others kind of smoothly, integrated into that because of the situation. and I think maybe a few key things that they kind of they've learned from that productivity was really increased. I mean, during this period, 40% roughly of folks in the region are looking for flexible working arrangements, because we got to really imagine the psychological impact of really remotely working for a year and a half. And in this region, for ours, we got to really think holistically, because the moment you think about the hybrid model, you think about yourself. You say, okay, I live in a house, I have a family, I have a few spare rooms, I have a garden, I can kind of manage, I can walk in the park. But, this is a very much a where we are, people are sharing, people don't have that facilities, don't have that privacy, so it's more stress on them when we kind of really speak about that, but a little less when you kind of speak about those. You find that, a majority of companies, even today, of course, depending on the kind of business, healthcare and industry, you got to be at the front line, got to be out there. But banking services, admin, kind of see them kind of still working back office. It's really something that's really happening in the region, and my colleagues and I kind of very much discuss this all the time. And if anything, it's got to be flexible working arrangements. It's got to be companies that kind of adapting, because they're seeing benefits financially, because they're able to save on real estate, etc., and productivity, as long as they have that balance on how to maintain mental health with commitment, with engagement, with employee welfare.
Yeah, thank you so much, Joe. I mean, as you spoke, I was thinking, yes, the stress, the pace, the mental health, and it's reskilling, and it's upskilling, and it's working from home. So, Rana, bringing you in, I mean, your experience developing leaders, optimizing company identity. Can you share with us some of the impacts of hybrid on organizational culture? What is hybrid doing to organizational culture in your view?
I believe maintaining a healthy culture is very critical to the company success. So culture has taken a hit since the pandemic, and leaders have increased their focus on culture and their concern about it. Of course, with the hybrid model, the culture needs to be adjusted and embrace new values and beliefs to enforce the hybrid styles. First of all, the culture will have to become more trust-driven and empowering people. Leaders need to trust that work will happen and achieved from anywhere. And they need to change their mindset and the way they lead. Micromanagement is no longer an option for the leaders. An organization needs to be more performance and people-driven organization. For example, the attendance system will go away, and measuring KPI and objectives will be more highlighted and embraced. Culture also should encourage dialogue between the employees and the leaders and engaging the employees in the hybrid style. So as I think Joy said, that we have to have the balance between working from home and working from the office, not 100% from office or 100% from the home. So we have to engage the employees to design that hybrid style. So it should be an open door communication and dialogue when it's come to the way that they like to work. Also, hybrid will open doors to recruit people from many different cultures, nationalities, and countries. So therefore, culture need to be more intelligent. So it will accept differences with people without forcing them to change and accept it. So D&I, diversity and inclusion, is a new movement, and the hybrid will accelerate the embracing of that movement. Culture, as I said, should support the diversity and inclusion, because the hybrid styles will give opportunity also for people with disability to work. And for more moms will be able to work because they will have opportunity to balance between work and home. So we have to be open and accepting all of these change. Culture also, as some of the panelists said, that it will have to take care of the employees' well-being and ensure that the employees have a social life, they have enough movement, especially that they will stay at home some days. So we have to, as an organization, we need to make sure that we have a strong well-being program tackling, or let's say addressing the well-being from different perspectives: social, for example, physical movement, spiritual, and many different things. Yeah, I think this is summarizing what things need to be addressed in the culture part.
Yeah, thank you so much, Rana. And organizations that do all these things well can really drive business value, by ensuring these values and behaviors are deeply rooted. There's a question that's come through now, Oliver, so I'm going to give this to you. How do we achieve agility without sacrificing collaboration, in your view?
Good question. But before I get to that question, I'd just like to address the diversity, equity, and inclusion part, because I think this is one of the big worrying elements of hybrid. We've discovered, like, categorically that out of sight truly is out of mind. So for those groups that decide that they want to work more remotely, such as mothers, as an example, are they going to have to sacrifice their careers because they're not going to get employed at the same rate as people who are physically in the office? I don't think that's the fault of the employee or whoever chooses to work from home. I think that's the fault of the employer and the organization to figure out how they can structure their their progression strategies within the organization to make sure that everyone truly is included. So that's a big issue. All right. Okay, agility and collaboration. Getting to the question now. So there's some really interesting things that's happened with collaboration during 2020. First, there's what a Stanford psychologist called Dr. Mark Granavetta would call strong and weak ties. So during the pandemic, the weak ties basically were obliterated because you didn't socialize with anyone outside of your immediate team. However, those that were in your immediate team, you got an insight into their world through the lens of the camera, and their kids, their dog's name, their family. Those strong ties got stronger. And that's where like trust and like the culture and the character of the organization comes from, is from these strong and weak ties. And in office, we know that the weak ties are really, really flourish in those environments, especially like the plazas, the cafeterias, the pantry areas, anywhere you can get food or water, really flourishes in those environments. So that's going to help build a bit more community and that trust element, which can then help the collaboration side of things. So there was some research done by a company called the Leesman Index that broke people down into high collaborators, low, and individual solo workers. And of those highly collaborative employees, 45% of them still wanted to continue doing collaboration in the digital world, even when we could return back to offices. So collaboration hasn't necessarily been like negatively impacted so much for everybody with the working from home policies. Some people can want to continue to still do that. But I also think it refers to short duration collaboration in particular. So, jumping on a call for an hour, no problem. Like if you want to do a thought shower session with a group of people for like a day or extended period of time, not great. That's where the office really comes in. And we think that like long duration collaboration, connecting with your colleagues, building that group of community is really where the office kind of is second to none in those environments. What we think will happen with the collaborative environments is that they were previously, before the pandemic, bookable spaces, and now we're starting to see them as dedicated spaces for a team or maybe two teams. So you've got a dedicated collaboration space for sales or maybe sales and marketing, because they have similar kind of agendas and connect quite a lot, as part of a broader neighborhood for those groups of individuals. And then the desks and chairs, which were dedicated spaces before the pandemic, are now going to be bookable and reservable environments after the pandemic. So individual spaces and collaboration spaces have kind of switched over in terms of collaboration and bookable. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, I'm sure that answers the question really great. I think, a sense of community and trust is important. But Vaslav, what I want to ask you, which is a question that has come through, is how can we as organizations then support employees? In all this madness and everything that's going on, how can we support employees?
Yeah, I think it's a very valid question. I think that uh, where we need to focus the most in terms of support is mental support. In a sense that one part of the inclusion, which Oliver has already mentioned, which is very important. The other part is how to actually engage them and ensure that they feel connected to the organization, and that's much more difficult in the hybrid setup than it used to be in the traditional setup. But I don't think. I mean, I still think the advantages of the hybrid setup prevail. It's just that what we probably have to do the most as organization is to retrain our managers to be able to manage employees in this hybrid setup. I think the role of the manager, or especially of the line manager or direct supervisor, will be even more important than before. They have to learn how to manage in this new setup and how to tackle all these challenges. I remember when we back then in March 2020, we just went into the lockdown from one day to another, and then suddenly it became difficult to switch from like the weekly meeting cycles to something totally remote, and we had to find a new balance and new ways how to manage and engage employees. I am not really a great believer in digital engagement. I believe we have to find there are thousands of tools on the market. Every now and then I get an email like, hey, we have a great engagement tool. It's mobile, blah, blah, blah. But everybody does that. And I don't think, that's the solution. I think the human element is just cannot be replaced by anything else. The other part is, and I think Oliver or someone mentioned it already, we have to focus on building trust much more than before. Trust in this remote or hybrid setup will be crucial. And I was really sort of astounded when I saw some companies implementing these kind of surveillance tools and measuring how many times the employee strikes the keyboard. I don't think that's the right way of engagement. So yeah, trust, communication, and retrain the managers so that they are able to manage people in the new setup.
Yeah, thank you. So Joe, I mean, everybody's asking, reskill, retrain, what careers for the future, etc. What are the careers for the future? What are some of the careers that will be for the future in your view?
That needs a crystal ball for sure, but maybe before that it did, but now I think it's kind of a bit more clear. I mean, if we kind of look at the World Economic Forums, at least for the last 2-3 years, where they've kind of been predicting how AI, digital, robotics, drones, technology would kind of very much replace a lot of manual labor today, so to speak. Needless to mention, also a lot of competencies need to be kind of revamped to keep up with the technology changes. So if you look on how businesses have transformed, you no longer need a company of 300,000 people to shape or change or implement or transform, but you can get a company that has no assets and no capex to kind of make it different in the hotel industry, like we're seeing with Airbnb, or in the transport industry, like we're seeing with Uber, et cetera, et cetera. So the mind shift has really changed, and the technology is very much advanced. Jobs, to be specific, a lot of companies, and I remember when we were with GE, we were looking for jobs that were not even developed yet, based on technology and trends. And data analytics on what would be the future like for some of the roles that we really have or that we're going to have when it comes to advanced engineering or advanced AI know-how or advanced digital capabilities. So definitely these are here to stay. We're also seeing an acceleration of AI usage, particularly on remote working with data analytics and smart algorithms and cloud technology, and how that's really kind of very much helping a lot of companies around the world to manage their remote workforce, to manage their inventory, to manage, or at least with data analytics to predict patterns and to have a better idea on what the future could look like. So anything in the AI industry, anything in digital, anything in analytics, in robotics is probably going to get a good plus going forward in the future.
So great to hear this. I think there's hope for some of us who will be retiring in the next 2 or 3 years. We can always learn a new skill. Thanks so much, Joe. We're coming almost to the end of our session, and I'd like our panelists to give me one word, and it has to be positive, that in your minds describes the future of work, and then I'll conclude. So let's start with you, Václav. It has to be one word, not a phrase.
I just want to say my biggest takeaway from this whole situation is that I saw what people are capable of when a crisis like that happens, and things can happen very quickly and in a very efficient manner, and people can literally move worlds, and that was like an eye opener, and I think it's maybe one of the few positive things I'm taking away from this situation, and I just wish we could do this more often and not only in crisis.
I wanted one word, Václav. I still want one word.
One what?
One word that describes the future of work for you. One positive word.
One word? Sorry, there's too many words, right?
Yeah, you gave me too many words.
Let's say hope.
Good, hope. Thank you so much, Václav. Joe? You're on mute, Joe.
I was really hoping that no one would say that today, but perseverance and flexibility.
Perseverance and flexibility. I'll take 2 words. Rana, I can come to you.
Adaptation.
Adaptation, great. And Oliver, the cherry on top, what will it be?
Freedom. We have been freed.
Freedom. Fantastic. I think what I want to say is great insights from my panelists here on the strategic role of HR in the future of work. We have had to re-engineer work and the skills needed to perform jobs. I mean, in a PwC report, it was quoted that about 80% of jobs won't exist in the next 20 years. And some organizations have had to double down on their company ethos to become fit for purpose, relevant in order to thrive. And you see that private sectors, public sector, government bodies have had to realign their policies to lift and advocate sustainable social responsibility. And lastly, of course, the pandemic has forced us to completely reevaluate the concept of 9 to 5. And as Oliver mentioned earlier, offices are moving towards being hubs of innovation, collaboration, and social interaction. We must recognize that different parts of the world are also experiencing different pace of change, but the future of work is here. And this creates an urgent need for us in HR to redefine aspects of work, the workforce, and the workplace. Thank you so much. Over to you, Helen.
Thank you very much.
It was a very, very interesting session.
Thank you, Millicent.
All your inputs. We've got 3 questions for you all, and any of you can take it. It says the future of work and the new workplace. How to make work better?
That's for Oliver. So since I'm the moderator, I decide who gets the question,
yes,
right?
Absolutely.
How do we work better? Well, I mean, during 2020, we were all working remotely. That was the only option that we had. But now we have the option of the office and working remotely because we've demonstrated that both are incredibly effective. It is that hybrid working. That's how we work better, giving people more choice and autonomy and flexibility. Turns out it leads to tangible business benefits and adds to the bottom line. So, yeah, hybrid.
Well answered, Oliver. Okay, there's another one. How HR must prepare for the future of work?
Joe.
Look, HR is already, I mean, we've proven done a fantastic job during the pandemic. So if anything, we've proven that we are always at the front, of any challenge, and very much keeping companies at force. So we've got, then says I kind of say resilience. Keep at it. The one thing just to keep in mind is that during a pandemic, there's no resting period, right? So it's never really defined. And just when you think that it's over, it can hit you from different angles and different. So just always be prepared. And we've shown that we can be prepared. We've shown that we can really drive this change. We are now capitalizing on this massive transformation that all of us, it's taken a lot of time and push to transform. And then we've seen that, hey, you don't need to do it on a slow pace. You can just really do it very fast. So we will continue to drive. We've proven that we can do it, and then let's take it to the new level.
Wonderful. Well said, Joe. Last question before you leave. How HR can help build organization during this pandemic? I think we will do that now.
Sorry, I can't. What did you say?
Okay. How can HR help build the organization during this pandemic?
I'm still gonna give it to Václav.
Okay.
Thank you. I was just reflecting back what happened in March 2020 when we suddenly went into the lockdown here in Malaysia, and HR played a really crucial role in that moment, because we had to convert the whole organization to remote working from one day to another, and there were many things on the HR side that had to be adjusted. Many policies, everything basically had to be digitized from one day to another. And although we were already quite far with the digitization, suddenly I realized that we were nowhere near like being fully digitized, and there were still many things to be done. So digitization is definitely one. And the other one, I think, is communication, because especially at the beginning of the pandemic, there was so many changes, and there are still actually changes in the regulations, and the government will make one announcement and then they will change it 7 times. And people are sharing a lot of fake news via social media. And then everyone was confused, like, should I come to the office tomorrow, or are we shutting down, or are we still allowed to work, and what's going to happen? And that it's coming back every now and then, because the different lockdown 2.0, 3.0, and many changes on the way. So HR had to say like a clear word and establish a straight and undisturbed communication channel with the employees, so that everybody was on the same page and everybody knew exactly what and how to operate. I mean, what to do and how to do it so that they could be on one hand safe, and on the other hand they could be compliant with whatever regulation was in place. So yeah.
Thank you. That's all we have time for. Wonderful panelists. Thank you, Millicent, for moderating a great session. Thank you, Václav. Thank you, Joe, Rena, Oliver. Appreciate all your time and beautiful, insightful takeaways for our audience. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Take care. Good luck.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.